The Minnesota Vikings final 53-man roster is finally here. And on today's edition of Vikings Now, we're going to be breaking it all down, going through all the cuts the Vikings made, and then actually looking at their finalized depth charts. I actually have a ton of takeaways that I kind of want to dive into as well. My name is Patrick Seaman. Welcome in. And before we hop into it, guys, the season is finally here. And you know what we do here on the channel. We subscribe for Vikings dubs. Sub for Vikings dubs. It's good luck going into the season. So if you guys haven't already and you guys are new here and this is your first time coming across our channel, lock us in, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to jinx the Vikings. Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield and the boys rolling into town. Tell you what, the Vikings can't lose that game, so you guys need to do your part and hit that subscribe button. Well, let's jump into it. The cuts are finally made, and, just want to say, before we get into it, obviously this is a tough day for all these guys that do end up getting cut. You work your ass off throughout training camp, mini camp, whatever it may be, and then you finally get to that, final cut down date, and you don't make the team. But this was the first group of guys that did get cut. Tanner Vallejo, the special teams demon, originally from the Arizona Cardinals. Wilson Huber, a linebacker. Jarrid Williams. Colin Thompson. Obviously, our boy JT, Jordan Ta'amu, he was cut, not making the Vikings' final quarterback room. And then Kalon Barnes in the cornerback room. That one, not a shocker to me. Kalon Barnes, he's a super athletic guy. I thought maybe Brian Flores would kind of view him as maybe a developmental corner, but he ended up getting the cut or getting the boot. CJ Coldon as well, Abram Smith, Jameson Houston, Josh Sokol. That was a shocker to me. I thought maybe they would keep him over Austin Schlottman, but they obviously ended up going Schlottman as the backup center. Then we go to Trishton DiLauro. Didn't really think he had a chance to be the backup swing tackle. They still ended up going Oli Uda in that spot. And then Calvin Avery, the defensive tackle, was spot. And then Garett Maag, a wide receiver. Listen, if you were a wide receiver trying to make this Vikings roster, you were fighting an uphill battle. This room was absolutely stacked. Guys like N'Keal Harry got cut a week ago. So Garett Maag got the boot as well. Tay Gowan. That was a shocker to me. The Vikings ended up only keeping 5 cornerbacks this year. So Tay Gowan getting the boot, I thought maybe he could have been the 6th guy. Ends up getting cut. And then Jake Gervase at safety ended up getting cut. And I'll tell you what, the Vikings kept 6 safety. So we'll be breaking down that at the later half of today's show. When we move to the defensive line, 2 big names cut late last night, Sheldon and Ross Blacklock. Ross Blacklock was not good for the Vikes last season. Sheldon we brought in. He didn't really impress me too much in the preseason game, so that was expected. My man Trishton Jackson, this one hurt me, the wide receiver out of Syracuse. I've always liked his game. He's always played well during the training camp sessions for the Vikes, even dating back to last season. I just wish he somehow was able to squeak his way on this roster, but he ends up getting cut as well. And then Luiji, the best name in all football, Luiji Vilaim, ends up getting cut. I thought maybe he had an outside chance, but they move on from him. And then JoeJuan Williams. This one hurt me the most. The 6'2" corner from the New England Patriots, 2nd-round pick in 2019. He played great in the Vikings preseason game. And obviously the Vikings was such a big need at cornerback. I thought JoeJuan was almost a lock to make this team, but I guess Brian Flores disagrees, and he ended up getting cut today from the final Vikings 53-man roster, so that one probably hurt me the most. Back to the offensive line with Allen Ollie. He ended up getting cut. Thayer Thomas, a little sneaky one. I do expect him to re-sign to the Vikings practice squad once he clears waivers. Super shifty UDFA from this past year's class. Again, if you're a wide receiver trying to make this team, you're fighting an uphill battle. Esezi Otomewo, the defensive lineman, the 5th-round pick out of last year. So the Vikings have already gotten rid of 2 of their draft picks from last year's class. Not looking too good, especially with the uncertainty around Andrew Booth and Caleb Evans. I think Kwesi's first draft class might be one of the worst of all time in Vikings history. Not saying it yet, but it's starting to look like that. Obviously, Aaron Dykes, he didn't really have a chance to make the team. DeWayne McBride, 7th rounder this year, cut. I just feel like Kwesi in his first 2 drafts just kind of wasting draft picks a little bit. DeWayne McBride, talented running back, but again, he was fighting an uphill battle in that running back room, but he ends up getting cut as well. And then we moved the wide receiver with these 2 guys, Lucky Jackson, Jacob Copeland. They got the boot, and then Ben Sims, another tight end, got cut as well. Jack Snyder, and then TJ Smith, another guy on the defensive line. And now we're going to be diving into the full-on depth charts and diving into each and every single position group. But I want to ask you guys this first. Most surprising roster cut this year. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I got to go JoeJuan Williams. That's got to be my guy. But I want to ask you guys, most surprising roster cut from this year for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start with the running back room. Obviously, DeWayne McBride getting cut was sort of a shocker to me, but I like what they did here. I like the move of only keeping 4 backs, including C.J. Ham. Listen, it's going to be the Ty Chandler, Alexander Madison show in the backfield. They're going to be getting majority of these carries, with Kene Nwangwu being the return special and also gadget guy. Then obviously C.J. Ham running the fullback there. Kick at the wide receiver now, you got the big 3. You got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and KJ Osborne. Not a shocker there that they're the big 3 on this group. But then Jalen Nailor, Jalen Reagor, and then Brandon Pohl, who's going to be the punt return man for the Minnesota Vikings. Those are the 6 receivers they kept. The Vikes were getting trade calls this morning around Jalen Reagor. They're going to they're going to hold on to him, and he could be moved on later. So make sure you guys subscribe, because if that happens, we will have a video ASAP. Kick at the cornerback. Not a lot of names here. Only 5 names that the Vikings kept at the cornerback position. Byron Murphy, Andrew Booth, shockingly, made the team. Or I guess not shockingly. It would have been shocking if he didn't make the team, but he ends up, hanging on there. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about it. But right under Booth, NaJee Thompson, the UDFA from this past year's draft class. Clap it up for him. Special teams demon. He was a great special teamer in college. And again, he was a great gunner for the Vikings in the preseason. So it was kind of cool. UDFA, he beat out a couple other guys that were obviously selected higher than him. So cool little story there with NaJee Thompson, one of my favorite players from this year's preseason. Kick it back to the offensive line here. You got the big 5. Those guys, that's going to be your starting 5 heading into the year. But I will say, they only kept 8 offensive linemen. Maybe they bring in Dalton Risner. I don't know. They don't really have a true backup offensive guard here. Obviously, Schlotman can play all 3 interior offensive lineman position, left guard, center, and right guard. So maybe Dalton Risner could be a name that the Vikings decide to bring in. So again, hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you posted if they do so. But Oliuta and Blake Brandel are going to be the swing tackles for the Vikes. Obviously, Oliuta can also pop inside as well. Linebacker position. Clap it up. Ivan Pace, UDFA out of Cincinnati. The hardest hitting linebacker on this Vikings team. He ended up making it. That was a cool story. Honestly, right now I don't have him slotted in the start, but that might change when we're kind of breaking down our Week 1 preview against the Buccaneers, because it's going to be between him and Brian Asamoah. I do think Jordan Hicks will for sure be on the field and for sure be a starter, just to have that kind of veteran presence in that linebacker room. But hey, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Ivan Pace ends up starting over Brian Asamoah, and then obviously Troy Dye makes it as well. But man, was this a shocker at safety. The Vikings kept 6 safeties. 6 safeties made this team. I think that was the biggest shocker of this whole thing. Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith. I expect Cam Bynum to start Week 1. Don't be shocked, though, if it's Lewis Cine or even a guy like Josh Metellus. But we know Brian Flores is MO. He wants to run a lot of multiple safety sets. So I guess it's not the biggest shocker in the world that they kept 6, but man, 6 is a lot. Keeping 6 safeties on your final 53, man, I guarantee you the Vikings will have the most in the entire NFL. But Jay Ward, he had a big-time play in the Vikings' final preseason game. Thayer Jackson, he's always played well for the Vikes during preseason, so it's good to see that he made the team. But 6 safeties, definitely a big takeaway from this depth chart this 53-man roster being released. Kick at the tight end here. The Vikings do end up keeping 4. Kevin O'Connell's been talking about this whole offseason on having an emphasis on running the football. And how do you run the football better? You have multiple tight end sets, and that's what they did. They brought in Josh Oliver, the best blocking tight end in the NFL during free agency, pair him up with one of the best pass-catching tight ends in TJ Hawkinson. I think the Vikings can be extremely, extremely creative and just effective out of 2 tight end sets, and then their backups are going to be Nick Muse and Johnny Munt. Kick it to the defensive line here. Dean Lowry, Kyrus Tonga, and Harrison Phillips will probably be your starters at the interior defensive line. Then obviously with Jacqueline Roy and Jonathan Bullard going to be the backups there. Dean Lowry, I'm excited to see him play this year, but don't be shocked if Jacqueline Roy, the rookie for the Vikes out of LSU, if he ends up taking that starting spot, maybe even early as October. In the edge department for the Minnesota Vikings, another UDFA made it. Andre Carter III. Let's go. I was really nervous that he was going to get cut, and then I thought another team was going to pick him up. I don't expect him to really play at all this year. I think, honestly, the Vikings threw him on this roster, this final 53-man, just because they wanted to kind of ensure that he was going to be on this team for years moving forward, and that's what they did. They kept him, obviously Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport, and then DJ Wanham and Patrick Jones as well in the edge department. Honestly, losing to Darius Smith this offseason, I actually think the Vikings I honestly think they're fine at edge. I don't think they're great by any means, but I think they got a top 12 edge group in the NFL. You got the superstar in Hunter, and then you got kind of the wild card in Marcus Davenport, and I think he could be extremely effective once he kind of stays healthy. And, he was suspended last year, so hopefully that, doesn't happen again. But that's the final full Vikings 53-man roster. I think my biggest takeaway was maybe the Brian Flores effect of them keeping 6 freaking safeties on this final 53-man unit. Like, I got to go check other NFL teams' depth charts and everything, and I guarantee you the Vikings will have the most safeties out of any NFL team. But that's Brian Flores' MO. Safeties, multiple safety sets, 3 safeties on the field at one time. So, hey, that's the final Vikings 53-man roster. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. As always, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. The season is almost here, so don't jinx our Minnesota Vikings. Lock us in, hit that subscribe button, and as always, Skol Vikes.